right, so today on Barnyard Builds, we're going to be comparing 12-valve Cummins to the 7.3 Powerstroke. So we're going to hop in the trucks, do some riding, do some sound checks and everything, and you'll be able to see what that's going to be like. So follow along and you'll see what it's like comparing a 7.3 Powerstroke to a 12-valve Cummins with the same transmissions, actual ratios, same manufacturer of the frames and rear ends. So we'll see how it is. All right, so like I said, we've had this Powerstroke since it was brand new. It's actually why I chose to, one, get a dually, two, get a ZF6, because I liked how this transmission performed with this truck. So let's pop the hood and check out underneath the hood. So obviously right here we have the famous 7.3 liter Powerstroke. Obviously you got the turbo centered in the valley, which is a little different from the inline 6 on the 12 valve. You got all your coolant, you got your dual battery set up, you got your air cleaner, all that sort of stuff. Like I said, we've owned this truck for 25, 26 years. It's always been good. We've put one turbo in it, but everything else has worked good. We've taken it on road trips to Florida and other places. Really, as far as reliability goes, there's nothing you could ask for more reliable as far as when we've owned it as a 7.3. I know they get a bad rap for not starting very good in the cold, but you just got to keep your battery cables clean and keep some good batteries in them. Performance-wise, it's performed really good. Of course, if you're a Powerstroke fan, you would know that this came out in '94. You would know that it had 235 horsepower and around 500 foot-pounds of torque. Obviously, not a lot of power compared to modern diesels, but plenty enough to pull everything we've had. Runs really good, have really no issues, no problems to say about it. We've put a clutch in it and stuff like that you'd expect out of a truck that pulls things and has over 150,000 miles on it. But only real problem that a lot of people have with the 7.3s is the injector power wires or whatever they are. They always go bad under the valve cover, so that's one of the known problems. And then of course that H-pop stuff, but this 7.3 haven't really had any issues with it, so we'll hop in and go for a ride. Ooh, bumpy, 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 bumpy. So you can see our baseline right here is, well, right at 56 when I'm not talking. So let's pull out on the road. We're going to turn the air conditioner on the wide open like you would if you're riding around in the summertime, and we'll get an average reading on here. So you can see right off the bat, you got to shift this truck right at 2,500 to 3,000 RPMs. Whereas my truck taps out at 2,300 RPMs, and if you go any further than that, you don't really go any faster, you just run your RPMs up. So in overdrive, running right around 55 to 60 miles an hour, we're hitting right at 16 to 1,700 RPMs, which is pretty similar to the Cummins. Of course, like I said earlier, they have the same ZF6 in them. And if I'll stop talking for a second, right around 70 decibels running down the road with the air conditioner wide open. So not bad. Probably going to be a little bit quieter than the Super Dually, but we're going to work on that if I don't wipe that mailbox out right there. But overall power and everything, we're running about 1,800. You give it some fuel, it'll take a while in overdrive, of course, to pull out and move along, and we'll compare that in the Super Dually when we hop in it and make the exact same run. All right, so in the Super Dually that we built on Barnyard Builds, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch that video. It's probably a 10 or 15 video series going through each section of the truck and some reviews and stuff we would do different, that sort of thing. But of course, this is on an 05 Super Duty frame, very comparable to the Powerstroke frame over there. We've got a 12 valve in this, and of course we've got a ZF6 in this, just like the green Powerstroke over here. So if you're a Cummins fan, you would know that this came out in 1989, and they didn't turbocharge it until the second gen of those, which is think around 93 or so, and you could either get it in like a 180 horse pump, a 215 pump. This has a 190 pump in it. It's completely Styco, and then we put an HE 351 on here to be able to spin a little more boost, spin up faster, and we've got a 6 or 7 blade compressor, I can't remember, but it's got a little bit bigger turbo on it, which is probably, if anything, just makes it more comparable to the Powerstroke. So let's pop the hood on this and see what we've got going on under here. We'll talk about some common problems with these, and then we'll hop in it and go for a ride. All right, so up underneath here we have a 96 Cummins 12 valve. Of course, like I said, we put a HE 351 on here. We have the Chevy alternator on here to make it all work without having to use that crappy Dodge alternator that always goes bad. Of course, if you have ever looked at a diesel engine, you probably know the 12 valve supposedly has this really bad issue where the dowel pin falls out. I think with both the injector wire deal on the Powerstroke and this right here, the internet's probably made it out to be a lot worse than it truly is, but it's still something that should be addressed, especially if you're going to swap one of these into a truck. While you got that out and you can get the timing cover off, might as well put a keeper in there and keep that from happening. Like we said a minute ago, 190 horsepower. If you're going to do a swap like we did, a couple things I would do is make sure you get a pyrometer so you can keep track of your exhaust temperature, and a boost gauge. But otherwise, we've put about 60 hours on this truck, which I think shakes out to be like 10 or 12,000 miles roughly. It's been really good so far. So let's hop in it, go for a ride, and see how she does compared to the Powerstroke. All right, so sitting in the truck with the idle, and it's about 10 decibels louder than the Powerstroke. Of course, the air conditioner's not on, so we'll go ahead and turn the air conditioner on and see how much louder it gets. Air conditioner adds about 2 decibels to it. So we'll plow out on the road, go for a ride, and see how it sounds. So like we were talking about, in this truck, your engine RPMs, 2300 is all you've got unless you go in and do some fuel pump modifications to allow it to spin high RPMs. The rotating assembly will handle it. You just got to be able to give it more fuel to do it. So we're in 4th gear right now, about 75 decibels. With the air conditioner running, we're going to go up to overdrive here. Running about 55 miles an hour. We're about 1300 RPMs. So that's right about 300 to 400 less than the Powerstroke. Like we talked about, the 12 valve makes its power band way lower than the Powerstroke does. So in overdrive, running the same speed, when we give this one the gas, we got that little bit more modified turbo. It'll pick up and push it all the way to 20 PSI relatively quickly. Get us up to about 65 or 70. I don't really have a preference on the power band between the 12 valve or the Powerstroke because I drive this truck pretty much every day. I've gotten used to where the power band comes in. When I was in high school and drove the 7.3 every day, I didn't have a problem with that power band either. So it's really just the difference in an inline 6 versus a V8 as far as when their power band comes on and the smoothness of the motor. One thing I have noticed has helped this truck with the noise in the last week or so is we've been working on this high country console, making it fit in here, this remote shifter. We slid this console over here and it really did cut a lot of noise out of it. I'd almost say probably 10 decibels. So when we go mount it permanently, we're going to line the inside of it with some Dynamat and really quiet it down a lot more. So we'll do a test and make a little short on that when we get to it. We'll say driving around parking lots and stuff, the 12 valve in the ZF6 is a lot more parking lot friendly just because the RPMs come in smoother and sooner than the Powerstroke. But of course the Powerstroke has it beat on the highway because you can turn those high RPMs in stock form. Right at 75 decibels, almost identical to the Powerstroke. We've put some Dynamat in here, but otherwise we haven't really added anything super crazy. We got a carpet kit ordered with some extra matting on the back of it to help quiet it down. And we're gonna throw another layer of Dynamat in this truck when we do that, along with some other cool stuff that we'll show you in our videos. I do find myself downshifting more on hills with the 12 valve than the Powerstroke. I don't know if that's because I'm not keeping it wound up enough, or just because of the way the band works in the fueling in the stock form. You kind of run out of your RPMs a little bit lower, and you end up lugging it a little bit more if you don't downshift, especially with a load. Without a load, it doesn't make a big deal. But with a load, it does add a little more strain. You just end up downshifting, I feel like, more than you do in the Powerstroke. So at the end of the day, you have a 12 valve, you have a Powerstroke, both really good, really functional diesels. Of course, lower on the power spectrum than the new stuff, but what isn't? On these trucks, your power band comes in a lot lower on the 12 valves than they do on the Powerstrokes. This one, if you leave it stock like it is right now, the fuel runs out at 2,300 RPMs. Of course, you can go and make other performance upgrades and make it fuel longer, but the rev range and the power band is way lower on a 12 valve than it is on a Powerstroke. Of course, over here on a Powerstroke, the power band comes in a lot later and a lot higher in the RPM range. This one red lines at like 3,500, almost 4,000 RPMs. So you have to wind it up a lot more to get to that power band than you do on a 12 valve. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a little bit different. This one does a little bit better when you're pulling a trailer, just because you get your power a lot sooner, you get your torque a lot sooner. But of course, on the highway, I mean, if I push it, you can get to about 80. Obviously, we're gonna go in here and do some performance stuff to fix that part. This one right here runs about 80 as well. Of course, they're both completely stock. I don't really have a preference RPM range wise, which one does which. As far as transmissions and shifting goes, it's pretty much identical because they're both ZF6s. This is a little bit newer one. This one's a ZF650. So it is a little bit newer, holds a little more power, but ratio wise, they're both completely the same. They both have the nice low range gear, so if you're hauling trailers and stuff like that every day, or skid steers, that low is nice if you got to get up and going on a hill, or if you pull out in front of some traffic or something like that. With all that being said, of course, the Powerstroke is a little bit smoother because it's a V8, so you have offsetting cylinders. The 12 valve is a little bit rougher idle because you just have all your cylinders punching straight up in the air. So, no problems there, really just preference. Obviously, smoother's a little bit nicer, but 12 valve will get the job done. The 12 valve is a little bit nicer as far as working on it wise, because the turbo's off to the side. You don't have to crawl in there and get up under the firewall to get to your turbo to dig it out of the valley to fix it. Your fuel filters, your oil filters, everything's right on the side of the motor. So once again, all this is relative to your opinion and your preference and all that sort of stuff like that. Love the Powerstroke trucks. Love my Franken tie over here that I built. So give us a like, give us a comment, subscribe. Of course, we've got stickers. We've got our stickers available. This is just our regular Barnyard Buildz logo. We have one of the Blazer and the Super Dually posted up next to each other. And of course, we'll add the CJ once we get it done. But the best way you can support us is like, comment, subscribe, ask questions. We try to get back to everybody's questions. And of course, if you want some stickers, we'll shoot you one out for $5. You can hit us up in the comments on how to get a hold of those. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Yes, Daryl.